Welcome to the week number 1 overview video for managerial economics here at Rutgers University, Camden. I am Professor Guy Pascal, and in these videos, which will occur every week, obviously I'm going to give just a brief overview of what you should expect for the week. Given that this is week 1, one of the several things that you should be aware of. Number 1, that you should familiar yourself with Sakai and the workings of Sakai. If you've used Sakai before, it's perfectly fine. But make sure you're comfortable using Sakai. Take a look at the tabs, etc., those different types of things. Also, we're using my Econ Lab from Pearson Publishing as a part of this course. Make sure you familiarize yourself with that. On the Syllabus and Intro tab of Sakai, I have a link there that says introductory videos. One of them is an introductory video for the class, but the link, another link there, is a series of videos that are called My Econ Lab Introductory Videos. And this is produced by Pearson Publishing. I highly recommend, even if you've used My Econ Lab before, that you watch those videos. It is quite helpful in giving you an idea of the functionality of the different things that are available to you. It will point out, for example, there are tabs available when you're working on a homework assignment that will help you to try to direct you to the correct answer and remind you of things that you need to know for that question. Also, there are links there for some of the questions that will take you back directly to the e-text area that relate to that question, so you can quickly go back to the e-text and reread what you need to know for that particular question. So make sure you're aware of that functionality. I've found in the past a lot of students don't realize that there's this help, quote unquote, help me button on the homeworks that will give you some guidance in what you need to know for this. So make sure that you're comfortable with all the functions that are available in My Econ Lab. Also make sure you remember that I have videos posted for each of the weeks. This is available on Sakai. So for example, if you click on the week 1 link or tab, you go through and it has a description of everything that's going on. It has your reading assignments, what's due, whether or not there's a forum. There are PowerPoint presentations that are available for you. And there's a link for videos. If you click on that, there's a number of videos that are available. So make sure you avail yourselves of that. What I have in here, a lot of the Q&As from the textbook. When I look through the textbook, I noticed that the walkthroughs, that the answer that they gave you are quite terse. Didn't seem like they went into a great amount of detail. So I have videos for the chapter Q&As that are there that are in more detail and walk things through a little more specifically. So if you have difficulties understanding the Q&As, those videos are there. I also have some additional videos that are available. For example, in week 1, there's a video on demand, supply, and equilibrium, and price floor and price ceiling. So those might be helpful if you're having difficulty with some of the topics, particularly the graphical topics or the the Q&As that occur. Also note that if you see something of a graphical nature and you think that it would be helpful to have a video for it, you can submit that to me. I will do my best to produce additional videos as I go along during the semester. Please realize that you shouldn't expect an immediate turnaround time for these things. So just be aware of that I'm more than willing to produce some more videos. The videos that I have up there, I felt what were for the topics that students would most likely have issues with, or that I had videos previously produced for other courses. So I tried to add additional videos into this to help students. So if there's a particular subject, particularly a graphical subject, where you think a video series would be helpful, feel free to let me know about that. Again, I will do my best. I am teaching 3 online classes this semester. in addition to running my own business. So I can't guarantee you'll get a very fast turnaround time, but I will do my best to meet any of those requests as they come in. So make sure you do that. Make sure you can use my Econ Lab and Sakai. And finally, make sure that you read the syllabus. Make sure that you know what's on there, because the policies and procedures for the course are on the syllabus. The reason I say this to you is that during the semester, I have no doubt that I'm going to get questions from students who ask questions about things that are on the syllabus already. And that's not good form. The way I look at it is, as I told you probably in the introductory video, the other introductory video, that I run my own business, and unfortunately that leaves me in entrepreneur, business person mode all the time. So I have the same reaction that I get when I have somebody who works for me asking me a question that I explicitly have detailed instructions for them to do, and knowing that they didn't bother to read the instructions. So just realize that unfortunately, because of the fact that I'm an entrepreneur, I'm in that mode all the time. So I look at things from that perspective, which will probably be good for you, because you're going to be getting a perspective of somebody who's in the business world and who acts like a boss, acts like somebody whose livelihood depends upon doing work and doing it on time. Chapter 1, just realize this is just a broad overview of the textbook. It gives you the rationales for how economic analysis can actually help managers to pursue the objectives that they have in a firm, and the fact that they have to deal with scarcity in making those decisions. Also, that firms generally, their overriding objective is to maximize their profits, and that managers, whenever they make a decision, there's an implied trade-off because of that. So, for example, from my perspective, if I decide to bid on a project, on a consulting project, and I get that means there's a trade-off, that I've guaranteed my time for that particular project, which means that if another project comes along, I might have to forego that project. I might have personal things that I have to forego, spending time with family, friends, etc. Just plain old goofing off, sitting and doing nothing. All right, so realize that the decisions that managers make are subject to constraints, and there's always a trade-off. If the manager decides to engage in one activity, that may well preclude engaging in another activity. And also the fact that managers are going to use these economic models to try to make predictions and make decisions based upon those predictions. So, for example, you might want to know how the economy is doing, or make a prediction of what the economy is doing a year from now. So you might think that, for example, if you're in production, that you've got a new product and the development cycle is going to take a year. So you would want to know, what's the economy going to be like a year from now? Are we going to be in recession? Is it going to be a recovery period or a boom period? If it's going to be a recession, you might want to forego introducing that product a year from now. You might want to wait a little bit to see that the economy is going to be doing better. The example I can give you is when I started my consulting business. I started my consulting business in September of 2001. If I had known that there was going to be a terrorist attack on 9/11, I would have not done this. I would have waited till afterwards. I had actually put my notice in with my employer and started the process in August. So obviously that's not something you can foresee, but you can understand the need for forecasting in the world to know what's going on with the economy, or what the demand for a particular product is going to be. Also, the fact that a good model should be simple and should make very clear predictions. All right, but there's a trade-off there. If you have simple models, you're not including everything in the model, but if you have a simple model, it is very actionable. All right, the more complex a model gets, the more difficult it is to understand. So make sure you realize that if you have a simple model that explains fairly well, that's one thing that you should use, a simple model that has a good explanatory power, and this will help managers make better decisions. And finally, the chapter spends a little bit of time between the difference between normative and positive economics. Make sure you understand the difference between that two. Normative economics is just that when somebody's values come into the decision-making process, where positive economics is just a statement of fact. For example, if I were to say that people with higher levels of education have a tendency to make more income or have higher wages, that's a statement that can be tested. A normative statement is more of a policy statement about what should occur. So make sure you understand the difference between that two. From there, we go to Chapter 2, Supply and Demand. It's an important section here. You make sure that you understand individually the laws of supply and demand and the determinants of each. The determinants are changes or variables that when they change, the demand or supply curve physically shifts its location, shifts it from the right or to the left. Be sure that you understand the difference between a change in quantity demanded / supplied and a change in demand / supply. Remember, a change in quantity demanded or a change in quantity supplied entails a movement along a pre-existing demand or supply curve. That you're just moving from one location to another on a supply or demand curve. Whereas a change in supply or change in demand entails the demand or supply curve physically changing its location, shifting to the right or shifting to the left. Also understand the difference between individual and market supply. Market supply is just a summation of individual demand curves. So you would define a marketplace and then you would be adding up all the individual demand curves for that particular product to get the market supply curve. You should also be able to understand what is an equilibrium and why markets have a tendency to move towards equilibrium. In particular, make sure you understand shortage and surplus in relation to this. Also, if we have a shift in supply and demand, how does that impact the equilibrium price and quantity in a particular marketplace? And also the impact of sales restrictions, price controls, and specific taxes on a market. So actually being able to use supply and demand curve in an applied fashion when analyzing different policy prescriptions. And also, when it is appropriate, make sure you understand that maybe in some instances using a supply and demand analysis might not be the best type of analysis. So when it is best to use supply and demand analysis in managerial decision making.